You don't notice it at first. 1 second, your world is humming with electricity, your phone is buzzing, the coffee maker is grinding, the TV is streaming, and every little gadget you depend on is obediently obeying your commands. And the next second, nothing. Silence. Darkness, if it's nighttime. A house full of appliances suddenly becomes a tomb of useless metal, blinking red or cold, lifeless screens staring back at you. That's the first truth of an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. In the very first 30 seconds, your life isn't just disrupted, it's rewritten, and you have no idea yet how vulnerable you are. You've built your life on wires, circuits, and invisible currents, and now those currents are gone. Poof, vanished. Your fridge is dead, your car might not start, your credit card is useless if the terminals don't work. Your dependence, your comfort, your illusion of control, it's all evaporated in half a minute. In that first half minute, you'll realize something else. Sound no longer obeys your routine. Digital clocks freeze at the precise moment the pulse hits. Security systems blink off mid-alarm. Garage doors are stuck halfway up. The world doesn't politely tell you, oops, your electronics are toast. It just doesn't respond at all. And when the silence hits, your first instinct is panic because everything you trusted to function has betrayed you. That panic is a natural biological response, your sympathetic nervous system flooding you with adrenaline. But here's the thing, survival doesn't favor panic, it favors clarity. You have 30 seconds to recognize the rules have changed. The first survival insight is simple. Know your environment. Look around you. Touch your appliances, push buttons, notice what still works. Mechanical systems, simple tools, hand-powered devices, they are your new friends. This works because EMPs only fry electronics with exposed circuits. A cast iron skillet doesn't care. Your survival starts with awareness, right there in the first half minute. Then comes the second shock, the practical one, transportation. That car you hopped into this morning? If it's a modern vehicle with electronic ignition or fuel injection, it might as well be a brick. Modern engines rely on tiny computers to keep combustion timed perfectly, sensors to read everything from oxygen to throttle position. 30 seconds after an EMP, you might find yourself staring at a hood that won't open, or an ignition that clicks and dies. The survival technique here is twofold. First, always have a mechanical fallback, bicycles, old-school motorcycles, or even a hand-crank generator if you're inventive. Second, know your neighbor's vehicles. Prepping isn't just about stockpiling gear, it's about knowing which machines can survive a pulse. This insight is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources, but it's grounded in the very real difference between digital and analog technology. Meanwhile, communication has evaporated. Radios, smartphones, even satellite systems are scrambled or permanently fried. In 30 seconds, the web of information that connects you to the world is gone. You might pick up faint signals on an old shortwave radio or notice that older CB equipment still hums, but anything reliant on microchips is dead. This is where your ingenuity is tested. Knowing Morse code, prearranged signals, or simple hand signals suddenly becomes more than quaint survival fantasy. It becomes a lifeline logic. If you need to call for help, you're back in 1925, except the people around you probably won't know how to respond. The survival technique is to maintain redundancy. Never rely on a single system for communication. A solar-powered analog radio or a pre-charged Faraday-caged emergency device can save crucial minutes, even hours, before chaos sets in. Then, water. In the first 30 seconds, it doesn't seem obvious because taps might still flow, but electricity powers pumps in municipal systems. The moment you've gone beyond the wall of your own home, that water tap can turn into a cruel illusion. Gravity-fed systems are your friend. Knowing local wells or rivers and having a mechanical pump or filter ready becomes essential knowledge. This isn't theoretical, it's physics and biology. Your body can survive weeks without food, but days without water. When the pulse hits, consider water security immediate. If you rely on electrically powered purification or pumps, you're already in trouble, and in 30 seconds, the clock starts ticking. Food is next, but less immediate. Refrigerators stop cooling. Freezers become thawing nightmares. If it's summer, bacteria move fast. In 30 seconds, you've lost the safety net of modern storage. Shelf-stable foods, canned goods, and manual cooking methods suddenly look like treasures rather than boring prepper cliches. You learn fast why traditional knowledge, from root cellars to solar dehydrators, isn't quaint, it's life insurance. Cooking over fire isn't just rustic charm anymore, it's the difference between a meal and a medical emergency. Electricity isn't the only casualty. Banking systems, medical devices, fuel pumps, and even elevators are suddenly treacherous. Life becomes a puzzle where every piece you assumed would fit is suddenly useless. This is why situational adaptability is your ultimate survival skill. The first 30 seconds teach you that no plan survives first contact intact. You can only pivot, improvise, and understand which systems still work mechanically. Clocks, analog watches, bicycles, hand tools, they're suddenly the elite technology of the moment. Finally, there's the psychological toll. 30 seconds in, and the emotional shock begins. You realize just how dependent you were. That's the subtle cruelty of an EMP. It doesn't kill, it doesn't warn. It forces reflection while everything around you quietly dies. Panic can be fatal. Calm, inventive thinking can be life-saving. A mental map of resources, an awareness of local terrain, and a quiet, methodical approach to tasks suddenly outweigh brute strength or sheer panic. If you learn anything in the first 30 seconds, it's that the survival equation has changed. Now, knowledge, foresight, and mechanical literacy outweigh raw technological reliance. By now, you understand the brutal clarity of an EMP. It isn't some distant, theoretical disaster. It's a rapid, invisible reshaping of reality, stripping away the scaffolding of technology and exposing raw survival mechanics. The world continues to operate under natural laws, gravity, friction, combustion, hydraulics, but the artificial world that coddled you with convenience is gone. Those first 30 seconds aren't just a warning, they're a compressed course in humility, ingenuity, and adaptability. Everything you assumed would protect you, everything you assumed would make life easy, is gone, leaving only what you can physically touch, what you can mentally grasp, and what you can improvise. Now, let's dig deeper into those survival techniques that the first 30 seconds of an EMP revealed to you, almost painfully. The first is situational triage. When everything goes dark, you have to assess priorities instantly. Forget trying to reboot a smart fridge or curse your phone. The world doesn't care about your frustration. Water, shelter, heat, and transportation leap to the top of your survival hierarchy because these are tangible, life-sustaining resources. This is why pre-knowledge of your environment is crucial. If you live in a city, know the locations of parks, rivers, and manual water sources. If you're rural, recognize which mechanical pumps or solar setups can be trusted. Your mind becomes the most advanced survival technology you own, and training it to triage efficiently is the difference between scrambling blindly and acting decisively. Second, redundancy isn't just a prepper catchphrase, it's literal life insurance. Faraday cages, old radios, hand-cranked flashlights, and even vintage cars with mechanical ignitions suddenly move from curiosities to invaluable assets. You've learned in 30 seconds that single points of failure are deadly. If one system dies, you need backups that are independent, analog, or manually powered. Your survival toolkit isn't just physical, it's also cognitive. You must know what can fail and how to replace it with something less convenient but more reliable. Third, low-tech navigation becomes a superpower. GPS is dead. Maps may be unreadable if you only know digital coordinates, and landmarks become essential. 30 seconds after an EMP, urban streets are no longer grids of convenience, but mazes of uncertainty. Trees, rivers, and old structures provide orientation. Learning how to read them quickly, sun position, shadow direction, topography, isn't an academic exercise, it's immediate survival. This skill isn't flashy, but it works, because nature doesn't require electricity, and physics won't betray you when circuits die. Fourth, manual security takes precedence. Alarm systems fail instantly. Electronic locks are useless. In that half-minute, you realize your home's protection depends on physical barriers, doors, locks, and ingenuity. Survival logic here is simple. When high-tech defenses vanish, the fundamentals of deterrence, visibility, access control, and strength of materials become your only reliable shield. Knowing how to fortify a position with what's at hand can prevent intrusions and preserve resources until order or lawlessness reveals itself. Fifth, fire and heat reclaim dominance. Cooking, sterilizing water, and maintaining body temperature all revert to combustion. That means you suddenly need skills you never used, starting a fire without a match, controlling flames, and using minimal fuel efficiently. 30 seconds in, this realization hits you. Electricity was your comfort. Fire is your lifeline. If you've neglected to maintain fire-starting tools or understand fuel types, you're already behind. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources, but the logic is undeniable. Fire obeys the laws of chemistry and physics even when technology collapses. Sixth, social awareness surges to critical importance. In the immediate aftermath, humans are as unpredictable as the technology they relied on. Neighbors, strangers, even coworkers suddenly exist in a world stripped of digital mediation. Trust must be earned quickly. Threats and allies are determined by observation and intuition rather than emails or status updates. Your survival instinct now extends beyond biology. It becomes social intelligence. Recognizing who can be trusted, who can contribute, and who might exploit chaos can literally be the difference between safety and catastrophe. Finally, adaptation isn't optional. The first 30 seconds teach you that no plan survives unaltered, and no gadget survives the pulse. What works today may fail tomorrow. The ultimate survival skill is mental elasticity, the ability to repurpose tools, improvise solutions, and think several moves ahead in a world where every assumption about electricity, supply chains, and normality is wrong. You learn to innovate on the fly. Because in 30 seconds, your previous reliance on digital convenience has been stripped away, leaving raw problem solving as the only currency. Beyond the immediate shocks of the first 30 seconds, the real lesson of an EMP begins to settle in. Time itself changes its meaning. You might have thought minutes were trivial, that an hour is just a casual unit of measure. After an EMP, every second is currency. The clock on your wall may be frozen, but your body's internal clock, your heartbeat, your hunger, your thirst, your mental endurance, they all accelerate in importance. The third survival insight becomes obvious. You must manage time as carefully as water or food. Actions that previously seemed optional, boiling water, checking your surroundings, securing shelter, now have urgency baked into them. Procrastination isn't a flaw, it's a risk multiplier. You can survive without electricity, but you cannot survive without prioritizing and acting within a framework of immediacy. Electricity, of course, isn't just about convenience. It's the invisible network that controls everything from traffic lights to medical devices. Within minutes, the absence of power transforms society's routines into hazards. Intersection chaos becomes the new normal. Elevators lock strangers inside.
Electronic medical devices fail in hospitals. People start to panic. But if you've internalized the lessons of those first 30 seconds, you approach this chaos differently. You rely on observation and improvisation. You calculate how gravity, mechanics, and human behavior interact when circuits no longer dictate outcomes. This is survival thinking at its purest. Physics as ally, panic as enemy. The next insight is mobility under constraint. Without fuel pumps functioning due to the lack of electricity, modern vehicles, already at risk from EMP exposure, become unreliable even if mechanically intact. Here, your options narrow quickly. Bicycles, carts, and manually transportable goods are suddenly gold. Roads may still exist, but the vehicles you once trusted are now toys. Learning to move efficiently without engines isn't just clever, it's vital. The ability to transport food, water, or medical supplies, and to travel for shelter or safety becomes a strategic advantage. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources, but it is rooted in physics, endurance physiology, and the reality of mechanical failure. Food security now asserts itself as more than a distant concern. Refrigeration is gone, and frozen or perishable stores begin to spoil almost immediately. In 30 seconds, you may not notice it, but the clock starts ticking. In 30 minutes, hours of spoilage begin. Your reliance on preserved, shelf-stable, and easily prepared foods becomes evident. Even simple techniques like drying meat, fermenting vegetables, or using root cellars suddenly carry practical value rather than nostalgic interest. Understanding which foods fail quickly and which survive without power is a survival skill directly tied to both biology and chemistry. Microbial growth, enzymatic spoilage, and basic thermodynamics now govern what you can safely consume. Medical preparedness, too, rises in urgency. Devices you rely on daily, glucose monitors, oxygen concentrators, even electric heating pads, may fail instantly. First aid kits, manual blood pressure cuffs, and knowledge of basic triage suddenly become more critical than any gadget you lost in the pulse. 30 seconds after an EMP, you're reminded that human bodies continue to operate by predictable biological rules. Dehydration, infection, hypothermia, and untreated injuries do not wait for power to return. Every person around you now relies on knowledge, skill, and manual effort more than on modern technology. The psychological landscape is equally treacherous. Even if you survive physically, mental resilience is under siege. People accustomed to constant connectivity are disoriented. Anxiety spikes. Rational thought competes with fear. In the first half-minute, you may not feel it, but the tremors of panic ripple outward. Here, the survival insight is to control your mind. Routines, self-talk, and deliberate actions stabilize not only your decisions, but your capacity to endure. Calm thinking amplifies effectiveness, and small, methodical steps, securing water, cooking food, moving quietly, compound into survival leverage. Then comes the lesson that underpins everything: adaptability. EMPs don't just kill electronics, they redefine the rules of daily life. A world without electricity favors those who think creatively and act decisively. You improvise, repurpose, and innovate, using bicycles for transport, solar ovens for cooking, hand-crank tools for essential work. Each small adaptation compounds, gradually restoring functionality in a landscape where modern infrastructure has become unreliable. Survival isn't about restoring the old world, it's about mastering the new one, invisible and merciless, yet fundamentally governed by predictable laws of physics, biology, and human behavior. Finally, reflection settles in. After the initial shock, After the scramble for food, water, and warmth, after the careful observation of people and resources, a new understanding emerges. 30 seconds may have passed in a literal sense, but those seconds carry lessons that could take years to appreciate in normal life. You've learned the fragility of convenience, the importance of mechanical and analog knowledge, and the power of calm, deliberate action. You've seen the raw bones of civilization revealed, and you've glimpsed what it means to survive in a world stripped of its technological crutches. And here's the enduring truth. The pulse of an EMP isn't merely an event, it's a teacher. It doesn't beg you to learn, it forces you. In the first 30 seconds, it changes your life forever. In the hours and days that follow, it continues to reshape your understanding of dependency, resilience, and human ingenuity. By embracing what still works, anticipating what could fail, and relying on knowledge and skill rather than circuits and screens, you step into a survival mindset that no pre-EMP life could have prepared you for. The world hasn't ended, it's simply returned to a raw, uncompromising state where only those who adapt and think survive. And if you carry the lessons of those first 30 seconds with you, you may find that life, stripped down to essentials, is more vivid, more immediate, and more human than anything electricity ever allowed.